Jasmine Crockett stood behind the CNN town hall curtain, her navy blue suit crisply pressed, her heart pounding. Behind the curtain, she could hear Kash Patel's big voice. The ex-Trump Defense Department official was already on stage, boldly saying, "Crockett is another progressive with no clue how national security operates." The crowd gasped at his audacity, cheers and boos filling the auditorium. As Patel gestured dramatically, his smirk was unmistakable. "She's all talk, no substance," typical for someone who's never handled classified documents. What Patel did not realize was that Crockett was not your typical politician. She possessed something surprising, a piece of evidence that would change everything and turn his entire story around. With the first-term Congresswoman from Texas, clutching her folder in tight hands, her eyes became slanted with resolve. This was not just a political discussion. This was her time to reveal Patel on live television. Before we jump into the explosive showdown, like this video and subscribe to keep up with the most bombshell political showdowns. Plus, comment where you're watching from. The CNN studio lights were blazing as Kash Patel took control of the stage like a pro. His well-groomed appearance was mirrored in his well-rehearsed talking points. Moderator Chris Wallace welcomed him as one of the most powerful members of the last administration's national security apparatus. Patel nodded, absorbing the intermittent claps from right-wing audience members. Patel was a close Trump ally, a vocal critic of the Biden regime, and a regular commentator who never hesitated to ruffle feathers. "I'm here to talk facts," Patel began, his voice carrying the authority he'd cultivated during his time at the Pentagon. "Our national security has been compromised under this administration, and representatives like Jasmine Crockett are part of the problem. They're focused on performative politics while our enemies grow stronger." The conservative section of the audience nodded in agreement. Some even shouted, "Tell it like it is, Kash." Patel continued, "Congresswoman Crockett is a prime example. A first-term representative who spends more time on social media than understanding basic national security protocols. She's criticized our intelligence community without ever handling a classified document. It's easy to throw stones when you've never been in the arena." The audience applauded loudly, but some fidgeted in their seats. Wallace tried to wrestle back control. "Strong words, Mr. Patel. Let's call out Congresswoman Crockett to answer." The spotlight turned when Jasmine Crockett arrived, a counterpoint to Patel's establishment poise. At 42, the freshman Texas Congresswoman was exuding the confident poise of a civil rights lawyer. Her navy blue pantsuit was accessorized with a statement necklace, her face serene but intent. Crockett, unlike Patel, was part of a newer generation of progressive lawmakers who were elected in 2022. As she sat down across from Patel, the contrast was dramatic, his set confidence against her new determination. Wallace presented her as a rising Democratic star and member of the House Judiciary Committee, who had been vocal on matters of government openness. "Thanks for inviting me," Crockett replied, her tone firm. "I've been hearing Mr. Patel's descriptions, and I'm eager to straighten things out." Off camera, Crockett's aide passed a note to the crew. "Be prepared to present Exhibit A upon cue." The note included very important information that would turn everything around. The risks were obvious. This wasn't merely a debate over policies. It was a matter of credibility, authenticity, and who better got national security. For Patel, it was about his image as a credible insider. For Crockett, it was about showing new voices had a place in being taken seriously, particularly when they came equipped with facts. Patel had no idea yet, but Crockett didn't show up unprepared. Her folder held the type of evidence that could blow his argument to pieces in seconds. Chris Wallace looked over at Crockett. "Congresswoman, Mr. Patel has challenged your credentials to speak about national security issues. What do you have to say?" Crockett adjusted her microphone, her expression calm but determined. "First, let me thank Mr. Patel for his service. It's always valuable to hear from former officials, especially those with such unique experiences in the previous administration." Her slight pause on unique didn't go unnoticed, drawing nervous laughter from the audience. Patel's smile tightened. I appreciate it that Mr. Patel would question my credentials when my job as a member of the Judiciary Committee explicitly includes oversight of national security issues. That's literally my job description as a member of Congress. Patel leaned forward, interrupting her. Committee assignments don't equal expertise, Congresswoman. I've actually handled top-secret information. I've been in the room where decisions affecting global security were made. Reading briefings isn't the same as creating them. His supporters clapped enthusiastically, but Crockett remained composed. Wallace tried to intervene, but Patel kept going. The American people deserve to be represented by those who grasp the gravity of these issues, not politicians who politicize security issues for CNN talking points, Patel said, his voice increasing in decibel. Before Patel could reply, Patel pressed on with his attack. When did you last receive a Level 1 security threat briefing? Have you ever had to decide on matters of classified intelligence that could influence lives American? His questions tumbled out quickly, intended to overwhelm her. Wallace finally got to interrupt. Mr. Patel, let's give the Congresswoman a chance. Crockett was still calm, though her eyes had grown tight. Thanks, Chris. Mr. Patel appears to be extremely worried about keeping classified information in order, which I note is interesting, considering his past. She looked down at her folder but did not open it yet. Before I get to that in particular, I want to remind all of you that congressional oversight of intelligence and security issues is a constitutional mandate. It's not being on the sidelines. It's getting the job the American people elected me to do. Patel scoffed, visibly shaking his head in dismissal. Crockett continued, undeterred. My background as a civil rights attorney taught me the importance of both security and proper procedure. National security and constitutional rights aren't opposing forces. They must coexist in a functioning democracy. Patel interjected, pretty words, but no substance behind them. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Performative politics instead of real experience. The reaction of the audience was divided. Some applauded Patel's aggressive tactics, but others started to bristle at his constant interruptions. Wallace addressed Patel. Mr. Patel, you've had your turn. Let the Congresswoman have a turn. Patel made a mock bow. By all means, I'm simply hoping we might finally have some substance. Crockett's face changed, not to indignation, but to something more akin to satisfaction, as if Patel had just marched straight into a trap she had laid. Because Mr. Patel is so upset about proper handling of sensitive data, maybe we should talk about his own track record in this regard. Her hand drifted over to the folder next to her. Because while he doubts my credentials, there are some very serious questions about his own behavior that the American people need answers to. There was a visible shift in the mood of the studio. Patel's face went blank. Crockett pulled out some papers from her folder. The camera focused in on the documents, which seemed like government official records with letterheads. Mr. Patel, Crockett said quietly, do you know the Inspector General's report of June 2022 on unauthorized classified information disclosures during the transition? The room went silent. Crockett's voice was more prosecutorial, sharper. For the first time, Patel paused. I know there are many reports, Congresswoman. You will have to be more specific, Patel replied, visibly flustered. Crockett gestured toward the production team, and a document flashed onto the big screen behind them. The crowd murmured as they attempted to read the marked-up parts. Page 47, paragraph 3, Crockett said matter-of-factly. It actually names you, Mr. Patel, in relation to what the IG referred to as troubling violations of established security procedures. Patel's expression hardened. That report is used entirely out of context, he said, his voice losing its earlier bombast. And parts of it have been challenged by several officials. Crockett smiled. I figured you'd say that. That's why I've got the follow-up test from September of 2023, reiterating the initial findings. She produced another paper, and the room temperature appeared to shift. Patel's allies had become silent, while others leaned forward, realizing something was amiss. This is a political hit job, Patel exclaimed again. Those are government documents, Mr. Patel, Crockett retorted. If they've been discredited, I'd be very much interested in seeing that proof. She addressed the audience. What we have here is a textbook case of projection. Mr. Patel is questioning my credentials, while his own track record demonstrates exactly the kind of mishandling of sensitive data that he's accusing other people of. The studio exploded. Half of the audience cheered Crockett's slow-motion dismantling, while the other half bellowed in defense of Patel. Wallace fought to regain control as the battle increased in intensity. Tune in for the explosive finish to this political battle. Don't forget to like, share, and comment below to continue the conversation. Patel's face had gone bright red, his poise cracking visibly as he saw Crockett arrive armed with a lot more than talking points. He had anticipated an easy target, a freshman congresswoman he could do in his sleep. But instead, he found himself fighting back, his own record being put under the microscope. And Crockett wasn't done, not even close. Only after Chris Wallace was able to finally calm the crowd down, Crockett pulled out yet another paper from her folder. "There's more we need to talk about, Mr. Patel," she asserted, cutting through the tension. "Shall we discuss the December testimony where you seem to contradict your own earlier statements regarding security clearances?" The expression on Patel's face made it obvious that what began as his ploy to discredit Crockett was quickly turning into his worst nightmare. The studio fell into shocked silence. The brash, confident almost attitude Kash Patel had earlier begun to lose. He sat tensely in his chair, casting nervous glances at Crockett, Wallace, and the incriminating documents on the screen behind them. "Let's be very clear about what we're seeing here," Crockett went on, her tone firm and commanding. She rose, claiming the stage with an authority that changed the entire power dynamic of the encounter. "Mr. Patel started this segment asking me if I'm qualified to speak about national security, implying I don't know enough about sensitive information to deal with it." She nodded toward the screen upon which the Inspector General's report continued to be displayed. While these formal records indicate that Mr. Patel himself was cited for what the report describes as serious deviations from established security procedures, while he was at the Department of Defense, Wallace regained his equilibrium and addressed Patel. "Mr. Patel, would you care to respond to these charges?" Patel adjusted his tie, clearly attempting to reassert control of the proceedings. "What Congresswoman Crockett is doing is precisely what I was discussing, taking individual incidents out of context to make political capital. That report was politicized." "Politically motivated?" Crockett interrupted, her eye cocked at a quizzical angle. "The Inspector General who wrote this report was one who had been chosen by President Trump, the same president for whom you worked. Are you trying to say your own administration's appointees were plotting against you?" The question hovered there as Patel wrestled to come up with an answer. The audience listened in rapt attention, many shooting it on their phones, knowing they were seeing something historic. "Let me go on," Crockett instructed, not even pausing for a response from Patel. She gestured to the production team, and the screen cycled to reveal another document, a transcript of congressional testimony. "This is from your appearance before the House Oversight Committee on December 13, 2021. She read from it, "I never disclosed any classified information outside of approved channels. That was your sworn testimony." She glared at Patel. "But the IG report explicitly states 3 times that you did just that. Do you care to clarify the inconsistency?" Patel's face grew hotter. "This is ridiculous. You are taking statements out of context and intentionally misstating." "I'm quoting you verbatim, Mr. Patel." Crockett cut in, her voice even but unyielding. "Your words, Mr. Patel. Sworn testimony. The difference between them couldn't have been more stark." Crockett projected confidence with facts in his hand, and Patel grew more and more defensive and agitated. The audience picked up on it, with some of Patel's early backers now appearing embarrassed. "But the most fascinating bit," Crockett went on, producing yet another paper, "is what occurred after these events were reported." She gestured once more, and the screen came up with an email thread whose recipients had most of their names blacked out. These emails indicate that after having been informed of security procedure breaches, you tried to get the people who had reported these breaches transferred to other departments. Some may regard that as retaliation. The gasps moved from row to row through the room. Wallace shifted forward, obviously as surprised as the rest of them. "That is a total fabrication," Patel said, his voice increasing. "Those staffing decisions were made for operational reasons that had nothing to do with any reports." Crockett nodded considerately. "Fascinating, because I also have here," she pulled out another document, "the sworn affidavit of James Keller, previous Deputy Director of Operations, stating that you expressly told him, and I quote, 'We need to clean house of anyone who doesn't understand how things work now.'" She gazed upwards. This interview supposedly occurred 3 days following the initial security breach being reported. The studio fell silent. Even Wallace was seemingly stuck for speech. Patel's supporters, who had been vocal at the start, were now silent, several fidgeting in their seats. This is character assassination," Patel finally sputtered, his composure fully cracking. "You come on national television with these selectively edited documents and try to—" "They're not edited, Mr. Patel," Crockett said, her voice firm but not unkind. "They're the official record, and they tell a very different story than the one you've been sharing about who is and isn't qualified to handle national security matters." She turned to face the audience directly, her expression serious. "Let me be clear. I'm not bringing this up to score political points. I'm bringing it up because national security is too important for hypocrisy. When Mr. Patel questions my qualifications while his own record shows these issues, the American people deserve to know." The crowd applauded, no, not only from her fans, but from the entire studio. It was the kind of reaction people have when they identify authenticity-piercing performative politics. Wallace, taking it back, addressed Patel. "Mr. Patel, would you care to respond to these particular charges about retaliating against employees who reported security breaches?" Patel's face had turned red and then turned white. He fiddled with his microphone, obviously stalling for time to compose himself. These are sensitive issues that can't be simplified to sound bites. National security operations are full of nuance, choices that may appear questionable to those not familiar with the full story. It was an evasion, and everybody knew it. The audience reaction made that obvious, with a few audible guffaws. Crockett noticed her window of opportunity and struck the final nail. "You know what, Mr. Patel, I do agree with you on one thing. National security is complex and sophisticated. That's why it needs integrity, transparency, and accountability. It needs leaders who obey the law they demand others to obey." She gathered her papers, smoothing them into a tidy pile. "So when you ask if I'm in any position to speak about these things, maybe you need to ask if someone with recorded problems obeying security procedures is in a position to throw stones." The crowd exploded again, with many of them standing. The camera cut across the faces of shock, adoration, and the special electricity of seeing something completely unexpected on live TV. Patel was transfixed, the confident smile gone, replaced by the strained look of a person who realized they'd been outmaneuvered. Chris Wallace, as professional as ever, tried to give one last chance to Patel. "Mr. Patel, you have 30 seconds for a final response." Patel adjusted his jacket, clearly attempting to recover as much of his dignity as possible. "The American people are intelligent enough to look past political posturing. My service record speaks for itself, and I stand behind it wholly. What the Congresswoman will not say is how many security threats were eliminated under our watch." "And your time is up, Mr. Patel," Wallace interrupted, turning to Crockett. "Congresswoman, your last 30 seconds. Crockett nodded, her face serious. "I did not come here to personally attack Mr. Patel. I came to stand up for the principle that oversight is important, that adherence to security protocols is important, no matter party affiliation. When we politicize these things, America suffers. So yes, I will keep asking hard questions regarding national security. Not because I am inexperienced, but because that's precisely what the American people sent me here to do." The cheers were prompt and deafening. Even Wallace couldn't help but gawk. The camera panned back to a wide shot of the studio. Crockett towering over the proceedings, documents clutched in his hands, utterly in control. Patel, slouching slightly in his chair, resembled a man who had wandered into combat with a severe underestimate of his opponent. The producer cued for a commercial break, but not before getting one last shot of the crowd. Many standing, phones held high, capturing a moment they knew would be replayed a million times in the days ahead. As the CNN town hall went into commercial break, the studio erupted in electricity. Spectators hurried to upload clips online, their thumbs racing across phone screens. In minutes, jarring Crockett receipts was trending across the country, with clip after clip pouring over Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Jasmine Crockett just ruined Kash Patel's entire career on CNN Live, wrote one of the tweets going viral, which was liked more than 50,000 times within the first 10 minutes. Another of the trending posts showed a split image of Patel's cocky grin at the start of the segment and his white-faced look at the end, captioned, "How it started versus how it ended." Conservative pundits rushed to defend Patel, accusing Crockett of ambushing him with selective facts and gotcha politics. Even among right-wing viewers, however, there was a reluctant admission that Patel had been outsmarted. Patel walked into that one, conceded a leading conservative commentator. Never underestimate your opponent. Basic strategy. As the commercial break ended, Wallace welcomed viewers back with the understated acknowledgement. "We've certainly had an illuminating discussion on national security credentials." The camera panned to show Patel had returned to his seat, though his body language had completely transformed. Gone was the relaxed confidence, replaced by rigid posture and a fixed stare. Before switching to questions from the audience, Wallace added, "I'd like to give Mr. Patel a chance to respond to the documents Congresswoman Crockett brought forward on security procedures." Patel paused, his media training evident as he tried to take back control. What we witnessed here was a traditional Washington gotcha moment. The Congresswoman came forward with selectively edited documents without offering full context. The issues mentioned were administrative in scope and were handled through proper channels. This is the very type of political theatrics Americans are sick of. His tone had leveled out, but the harm had been done. The audience's response was lukewarm at best, with several visible eye rolls as he tried to brush off the evidence. Crockett did not interject, letting Patel complete before he answered. "With all due respect, Mr. Patel, these files are finished and unredacted. They can be obtained through requests for FOIAs, which is how my office got them. They're not classified. They are the public record, and the American people have a right to know the truth, particularly from those who choose to appoint themselves as guardians of who is or isn't qualified to speak about national security." The first question from the audience was from a middle-aged woman who described herself as a registered independent. "Mr. Patel, in light of what we've just heard, do you still believe that Congresswoman Crockett does not have the credentials to comment on issues of national security?" The question hung in the air as cameras recorded Patel's face, a combination of outrage and the growing realization that this appearance had gotten out of his control. His reply was brusque. "My point was and remains that having theoretical knowledge is different from operational experience. Everything else is a distraction." As the town hall went on, the different styles became increasingly stark. Patel became more and more defensive, his responses shorter and combative. Crockett, on the other hand, moved well beyond the documents to talk reflectively about the intersection of security and accountability within a democratic society. By the time the hour-long segment ran out, the story had utterly reversed itself. What was supposed to be Patel's moment to establish himself as an expert on security and take down a progressive congresswoman had instead turned into Crockett's coming-out party on the national scene. Beyond the studio, the influence continued to spread outward. Large news organizations hastily produced analyses of the confrontation, with headlines within an hour. "Crockett's receipts. Congresswoman comes armed with evidence in stunning exchange with former Trump official." Washington Post. From prosecutor to Congresswoman. How Jasmine Crockett's legal background led to Kash Patel's televised reckoning. Politico. And Patel faces backlash after confrontation with Crockett reveals security protocol questions. Reuters. Not even Fox News could stay away from the story, although their spin tried to neutralize it. Patel ambushed with selective documents in CNN appearance. Calls out political theater. Politicians behind the scenes were already recalibrating their political math. Democratic strategists who had seen Crockett as a future but junior congressperson were recalculating her potential. Campaign offices texted one another. Did you see Crockett on CNN? We have to get her to top the fundraiser next month. Republican operatives were also messaging in a similar panic. Patel walked into a buzzsaw. Who prepared him? This is going to be on repeat throughout the weekend.
The viral moment spread beyond political circles, too. By evening, late-night comedy writers were feverishly weaving the confrontation into their monologues. Kash Patel learned something today. One host would crack that night. When you come after the Congresswoman, you'd better not miss. And perhaps look to see if she has a folder first. In her hotel room that night, Crockett's phone buzzed continuously with notifications. Congratulatory messages poured in from colleagues, constituents, and even a few celebrities who had shared the clip. Her social media followers had exploded, with her account gaining over 200,000 new followers in just hours. One text message stood out from the Democratic House leadership. Impressive work today. Let's talk about your committee assignments when you're back in D.C. For Patel, the aftermath was much less rosy. Conservative media that had once prominently featured him suddenly seemed less interested in having him on their shows. His phone also rang with calls, but many were from friends inquiring variations of what went down and dishing out unsolicited advice on damage control techniques. A week later, the standoff had become a staple in political culture. Bringing receipts shortened to meaning being prepared with proof to substantiate allegations. There was a new political meme genre created. Kash Patel thought he was up against an easy one, but got Jasmine Crockett with documents. T-shirts went online that read "Check the documents" across the front, an immediate inside reference for those who had seen the showdown play out. For ordinary Americans, the exchange echoed beyond party politics. It resonated with the deep pleasure of witnessing preparation conquer bluster, of substance conquering style. In offices all over the country, individuals mentioned the confrontation when discussing being prepared for meetings or presentations. Don't Patel this, bring your Crockett energy. The greatest influence, however, was on the principals themselves. For Crockett, the confrontation raised her national profile overnight. What could have required years of incremental exposure was accomplished in a single electric hour on CNN. She was no longer merely a bright freshman representative, but a proven force to be dealt with, someone who had done her research and couldn't be coaxed, even by Washington veterans. For Patel, reputation rehabilitation would take much longer. The encounter not only had destroyed his hard-won reputation as a national security expert, but had posed serious questions regarding his record that would trail behind him to future interviews, employment opportunities, and political aspirations. Most of all, the encounter acted as a strong reminder regarding political rhetoric in America. It was an age often characterized by talking points and personal attacks, and yet Crockett had shown the power of merely showing up armed with facts. It wasn't flashy speech or personal attacks that had altered the dynamics. It was verifiable evidence laid out in straightforward and assertive fashion. 3 months on, when Patel was questioned on the incident during another interview, he tried to brush it off as ancient history, politically speaking, but the clip kept turning up whenever he made absolute statements on security issues. The internet, it appeared, had a better memory than political tacticians might wish. And as for Crockett, she used her new national platform to call attention not to herself, but to her legislative agenda, voting rights, criminal justice reform, and yes, government accountability. When questioned about the confrontation that had propelled her into wider recognition, she generally answered with characteristic bluntness. It wasn't about him or me. It was about making sure the American people get the truth. That's the job, bringing receipts. The lesson for politics in America was clear, but not everyone would learn it. In a day of instant fact-checking and viral moments, authenticity and preparation beat bluster and credentials. Crockett hadn't merely won a political debate. She set an example of how substance could still win in a day too often ruled by style. And somewhere in America, in thousands of classrooms, town hall meetings, and workplace presentations, individuals unfolded folders full of their research and documentation, tapping into a little of that same passion, prepared to talk truth with the receipts to prove it. This was more than the tale of a political showdown. It was a reminder of what political dialogue could and should be: knowledgeable, evidence-driven, and responsible to the truth. Don't forget our next analysis of Washington's biggest showdowns. Subscribe now and click that little bell so you'll never miss these pivotal moments in politics when they happen. A comment below and let us know what you think about Crockett's demolition. Was it the best scripted political reaction you've ever witnessed? Catch you all in our next video.